Howdy-ho, neighbors. It is the Household Gamer with our pre-lunch break battle report game report. This week we are facing off Explorers versus Neverborn, and I decided I wanted to bring a crew that I haven't played. So I asked Matt if I could borrow Cornelius Basse, and he said sure. So I am bringing Cornelius Basse. We're playing corner deployment and corrupted ley lines, which I think is terrific for Bass. That corner deployment sets your opponent way back, but with home on the range, my guys are going to go forward up to 7 or 8 inches, which is nuts. And the scheme pool rewards mobility. We have outflank, we have spread them out. So my idea is I'm going to hold the center with Bass, Bernadette, and the Intrepid Emissary. So those guys are going to go forward. Intrepid Emissary is going to take the hits on Bass and Bernadette, and they're just going to fire off shots and surround that center marker. Meanwhile, I'm going to take 2 Rough Riders, along with a Frontiersman and a Pathfinder, and split them up into teams. They're going to go off to the corners. Each one is going to use Ride With Me and Follow My Path to sort of slingshot the other one up. And that way I can get those corrupted ley line markers in the corners and move on to drop scheme markers for outflank, which I think I'll be able to achieve easily. I was torn between taking an Austringer and a Sandworm, and then I decided he's probably taking Titania, so I'm going to take a Sandworm so I can exploit all the terrain around the table and have a mobile piece that I can just pop up anywhere I want. That's being played by a Soulstone Miner on a larger base today. So let's see what my opponent is bringing.
Hey, it's Matt here, and I'm going to talk about what models I chose for this week's battle report when I played Titania. I was a little hesitant on some of the schemes that were available with this crew. It was Outflank, Research Mission. None of these are like super stellar for Titania, unfortunately, but I just really wanted to play Titania, and Assassinate was an option. I felt like that was a good choice. He was playing Bass, who was definitely pretty sturdy, so I was a little hesitant, but I thought if I could dedicate some models toward that, I could probably achieve that. As far as model choices that I made, I went with Titania, as I already said, mainly because she's very sturdy, and in Corrupted Ley Lines, I just feel like she can kind of fly around and kind of get to wherever she needs to be. She's obviously really good at holding down certain points. I took the Gore, obviously, you have to, but also mainly because I took Killjoy and the Malifaux Rex, and so it was basically going to be cram these models down his face, try to do as much damage as absolutely possible, and then have the snake then turn into whatever model died. And then if it was Killjoy, he's got, several lives essentially. Then I chose 2 Autumn Knights. They're pretty decent stat-wise. They're a little sturdy as well. They got armor and hard to wound, which is kind of handy. And then I also chose Aislinn, who stat-wise on the surface, she seems a little mediocre, but every time I play her, she's just very consistent, and I like consistent models that I can kind of rely on. She's got a gun. It's kind of the only gun in the crew, so it's kind of handy in that sense as well. And then she also has a really underrated zero action, which is called Study, which then allows you to target a scrap or corpse marker within 6. And you need a 6 to pass the actual duel itself, but then you drop a scheme marker into base contact with the target, then remove the target. So essentially, if I start killing off his models, then I'm able to drop scheme markers where I want them to be, so I thought that was pretty handy. And that pretty much wraps it up for this week.
All right, tune in for our battle report of Bass versus Titania coming up soon. See you then.